So now the EPA under Scott Pruitt has basically reversed completely on its mission to protect the environment. See, instead of protecting the environment, the air, water, rivers, all that stuff, the land against corrupting corporations, or polluting corporations, I should say, they've instead decided that, no, we're actually going to protect the corporations against environmentalists. So it's the Environmentalist Protection Program now, or administration. We're protecting the corporations against environmentalists. Wonderful. Now, here's a good case in point, right? And this is according to a new article from Reuters. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is now withdrawing the once in, always in policy for the classification of major sources of hazardous air pollutants under the Clean Air Act. So now, this is part of Donald Trump's deregulation, right? So what he wants to do is he wants to roll back all these environmental regulations because he doesn't actually care about them. The guy's like over 70 years old. He's not going to live that long, right? He's not going to live long enough to see the worst effects of climate change. So he's like, I don't care. I don't care. Oil and gas is my friend. All my friends, Rex Tillerson tells me this is great. So, and this regulation is terrible, so we have to get rid of it. I mean, all my friends say it. And I've got the best friends, right? And oil and gas is the best. But by the way, we've got the cleanest coal. So we just take the coal out, and we scrub it, and we clean it, and it becomes clean coal. That's not how it works. Anyway, now, under the EPA's new guidance, sources of hazardous air pollutants previously classified as major sources. So these are, power plants and things, coal plants especially, and factories would now be reclassified as area sources when the facility limits its emissions below mandated thresholds. So area sources such as dry cleaners, gas stations, paint shops are sources that emit less than 10 tons of single toxic air pollutant or less than 25 tons of multiple toxic pollutants in a year. So, okay. So why would this move be important, right? Especially if, hey, look, many of these companies have reduced their emissions under that point, so they shouldn't be considered major polluters. Well, let me point out why they want this reclassification. According to Reuters, area sources are subject to less strict pollution controls standards than major sources. So basically, hey, look, less strict control, right? Less strict standards, meaning they're not going to watch us very much. They're not going to be watching over us and making sure that we're not polluting as much. So when they're not watching, watch out. We're going to start polluting more. Now, why would they want to do that? Well, it's because they make money. And now, the thing is that if you're not watching over these corporations, sure, you'll bust them once on some pollution, like, hey, your pollution is too high. You need to reduce it. You need to do something about it. Yeah, okay. We'll do it for a little bit, and then, or maybe not. Maybe they'll just be like, F you, we don't care. We're making money from this pollution, so stuff it. Well, in response to that, back in 1995, they said, okay, well, look, if you're not going to reduce your emissions, then we're going to put you in a special category with strict regulations. So this is where the once in, always in policy came from. And it states that once a major facility fails to meet certain emission thresholds, it will permanently be required to comply to those standards, even when such a facility does make changes to reduce the pollution levels below those thresholds. So look, even if they do make changes, yes, then they're still under this because at once they had been a major polluter. Now, some people would point out how that's completely unfair. I mean, sure, yes, these coal plants and stuff, yes, they were dirty. They were pumping all these things into the air, but now they've made changes. They're clean. They're running clean coal now. Well, look, the problem with this is that, again, with less oversight, you're going to end up having more pollution. If you don't watch them, they will pollute. That is the problem with these corporations, is that they are machines. These machines are programmed to make profit. we have created legal fictions called corporations with the sole purpose of creating money for shareholders. And they will do whatever they can. If you do not watch them, if you do not regulate them, if you do not have strict standards for them, then they will circumvent those standards in order to make a profit, in order to make a buck. That's why we have to watch them, right? So now they're saying that, look, these companies, it's not fair because since they've been hit with the policy, and I love this, right? This is the Trump EPA who came out with the memo. They said they criticized this policy as a disincentive for major sources of pollution to implement a voluntary pollution abatement and prevention efforts or to pursue technological innovations that reduce emissions. So they're saying that, look, since we're under this classification and we can never leave it, why would we ever want to reduce emissions? I mean, since we're always going to be under the scrutiny, always have to meet these standards, then why would we do it on our own? Well, the answer to that is that you would never, like, that you would, if we leave you alone, you won't want to do it anyway. Because you have no incentive to go and reduce your pollution, because that ends up costing you money. That ends up taking away from your bottom line. That is why we need to watch them. It's in the environment's best interest for us to regulate them, but not the company's best interest, because again, when they have to follow rules, they're not able to cut as many corners, they're not able to pollute as much, and that costs them money. So, and that's the thing, right? So now the EPA, unfortunately, is giving them another chance to go and cut those corners again. So they'll no longer be governed by strict rules, and without strict rules, we're going to see more pollution. It's going to go back, or it's going to stay the same. And that itself is bad, because our entire goal should be reducing pollution. We should be pushing for less pollution, because right now we still have levels of pollution in our air that are unacceptable, that is killing thousands of Americans. In fact, there's a study last year out there led by Francesca Dominici. She's a professor of biostatistics at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Now, this study that was put out last year was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, claims that thousands of people in the United States are still dying from air pollution. Now, they point out that it's people in poorer areas, right, and many African Americans. So you have air pollution that's killing poor people and black people. So, because they end up being in areas where there is less strict pollution controls. Now, the researchers, they use data from federal air monitoring stations as well as satellites to compile a detailed picture of air pollution down to individual zip codes. They then analyzed the impact of very low levels of air pollution on mortality using data from 60 million Medicare patients from 2000 to 2012. They found that if we were to reduce the levels of air pollution, you could save 12,000 people's lives a year. So 12,000 people die as a result of air pollution. And she says, quote, "It's very strong, compelling evidence that currently safety standards for air pollution are not safe enough." And yet here we have the Trump administration saying, let's get rid of once in, always in. Let's let these companies, let's leave these companies alone because we're over-regulating them. And if they happen to have more pollution into the air, put more pollution into the air, that's fine. They're within standards. As long as they maintain a lower standard just under the threshold of becoming a major polluter. When we should be reducing that threshold far, far more. And you think the Trump administration is going to do anything about that? Absolutely not. They have shown, once again, that they are a friend to industry, and they are not a friend to the environment. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.